I first met, Robert when I was still in the amateurs. He came to watch me fight in Fresno one time as an amateur fighter, and then I would go to his gym to spar before I moved to Freddie Roach. Towards the end, once I realized that the sparring was with Robert, and I needed that type of work to go to the next level, uh, I realized that it was time to make that decision. But I told Robert, hey Robert, let me finish one more fight and become a world champion with Freddie. I owe it to him, to become a world champion with him, and then I'll start with them. But people don't know. Actually, I came to train with Robert 2 weeks before my training camp started with Freddie Roach to face Amir Iman, and but it was mainly because a lot of it, we connected, but it's mainly because Robert had that great sparring, and he was on it and he was moving. Freddie Roach was at the point where he was kind of slowing down a little bit. I know he got a second win, but it was for that reason that I came with Robert, and and it was a good fit. Yeah, having someone like Robert, we're very similar. Me and his family, we're very similar. We're first generation here. We come from a farming community, and we have the same chemistry, and I like that. We come from the same state of Michoacan in Mexico, so there's a lot of similarities.
Well, look, when you're talking about similar in age, Jose's like four years younger than Mikey. So there is a difference, in age. But Jose is more of even though he's very young, he's like the veteran in the gym. He's like the example. Every other one of my fighters looks up to. Jose's the role model, the family man who takes very good care of his family. He brings his parents to see him train once in a while. He brings his wife, his kids, doing his businesses back home and everything. So he's like the example. And just at 32, I think he's he's a really good role model for the rest of my fighters. Look, like Jose said it earlier, I was already chasing him around since the amateurs. I traveled. I went to Fresno to see him compete one time. Then when Mikey had a fight at the Staples Center, I think Chavez Jr. was the main event. I invited him. We invited him to the fight. He came over with his family. We sat to talk about his professional career. It was right after the Olympics, and so since then I already knew he was going. He was a future world champion, a future superstar, and even though he didn't start his career with me, but he did become a champion. He did become a champion right before he came to me, and like he said earlier, he told me I owe that fight to Freddie Roach, and that showed me the kind of person he is. Look, even though it was a fight that we didn't get the win, I was very pleased and very happy with the way the performance was going against Josh Taylor. He was dominating the first half of the fight, until he got dropped. I believe it was the sixth round, maybe. Before that, I was just so happy, with the performance, because Josh Taylor's a great fighter. Josh Taylor's very talented, and him dominating that the way he was doing, man, that made me feel so good. I kind of thought to myself, like, we got this undisputed in our hands. But obviously things happen in boxing. But I think that one was good. When he beat Hooker, also, very few thought we had a chance. Most of the people thought we going back to his backyard and fighting him in his hometown. Very few gave us a chance, and look at the way he did it. Look at his performance there.
Again, I go back to the chemistry that me and Robert have. I think he understands me as a person, the person that I am, and he knows that the cojones that I carry, and I am a very mature person. I will consider myself a very mature person for my age. So, I tell Robert, like, in very small words, that I like to stay composed. I don't like when people get too dramatic. So I like that Robert always shows me that type of deal, and he says what I need to say, what I need to do. He points out my mistakes, but he does it very composed, and I like that. I like that because that shows that the whole team has confidence and it has a good positive energy in that corner.
Look, it's not really like we haven't really been into that situation. I believe in Jose. He believes in me, and we make it work. Not only myself, but my son Pita, Chepe, Felipe, obviously our conditioning coach Charles Tremley. Everybody's part of the group. We all team up, and we all come up to an agreement. We never really had any discussions about him thinking something and I'm thinking the opposite, I think we're always been on the same page.
It's my job to be coachable, you know. So I have to be coachable. So I have to show Robert my, you know, the respect. And as a matter of fact, my father, if he was to ever find out that I disrespected Robert by going against what he told me, you know, I feel like I'll leave him down, you know. And that's one thing I don't want to do. I have to show an example to my son, because now he started doing sports. So that's who I am, and I'm, you know, it's about being humbled and, you know, trusting the process and allowing my coaches to tell me what I need to work on and respecting that. Robert's a good man, you know. Outside of boxing, he's a good person, you know, and you know he's always here on time, and he's, you know, and someone like, you know, a lot of coaches, you know, when you have a lot of world champions and, you know, you made some money, they only show up when they have to, you know. And Robert's here, man. He's here, and he focuses on fighters that have one win, no professional experience, the same as he will for someone who's a prospect, and the same as he will for someone that's a champion or fighting for a world title. So, you know, I respect that about Robert.
Look, every Mexican loves that Mexican style, that hard, you know, like Jose said earlier, you know, the cojones, you know, and that's what he does. You know, obviously we have to, you know, work a little bit. Some, you know, you guys see him working on defense, moving around, making his opponents move, counter punching. That's something that we just, you know, we're adding to it. But you know, his heart, his condition, his desire to win and not give up. It doesn't matter how many rounds he does. He's gonna push himself to the last round, like if it was the first round. Look, the discipline, the heart. You know, there was a situation a few years back when one of my fighters, actually, a couple of my fighters asked Jose, "Damn, Jose, how do you do it? You don't get tired?" And Jose's like, "I get tired just like anybody else, but it's in here and here." And that told me a lot about Jose.